And welcome back to Hot and Cold Podcast. Look, now this episode we've been kind of circling since the beginning of the season. It's Final Four, teams are set. But this is maybe the worst possible combination of teams for me. This tournament, it's been something that is that's hated me. I've always loved the tournament. They didn't love me back this year. That is a for certain thing. The Final Four is set. We're going to start off a little bit talking about that and the Elite Eight games that led up to this. But before we get into all of that, Connor is with me today after a brief one episode pause. How you doing today, Connor?
Great. You're talking about the Final Four. Went and looked at our bracket challenge.
I think I'm in last. I think I may be in last place because I had Kentucky winning it all.
I have a Kansas bracket left if Kansas wins it all. Basically, I'm the only one that had a Kansas bracket, so I'll win the whole thing. If not, I think our friend Hooperazzi, IU guy, he has a Villanova bracket, so it'll be he and I kind of.
Is Bryson still in first place?
Yes, but he had Gonzaga winning, so.
Okay. So he can't really get.
I mean, technically, the third place bracket in the group is me, and it's my IU bracket. So, I mean, that's the point totals right now. Really,
whoever had St. Peter's beating Kentucky, they get a lot of points there.
There was a random guy in there. I swear he actually had that.
No, I know who it is. It's my brother. It's my brother-in-law. It's my brother.
Okay, yeah.
Because
I was like, who the hell actually had that in there?
Yeah.
But his bracket was like spot on for a while. I was like,
it's really my brother-in-law. Yeah. So, I mean, the tournament's hated me. It's fine. I get it. But I'm almost on off-season mode. I'm going to head down, go through it. Final Four. We're going to have a special episode for it on Friday. But I do want to kind of discuss this briefly, but I do want to go off-season episode here. So Villanova, Kansas, first game, obviously Villanova, Houston game. It was ugly. It was a beautiful, ugly performance. Houston had 1 or 2 threes and they just kept shooting them. Yeah. 1 3 and they 20. Just kept shooting. It was disgusting. It was gross. And look, the reason that I'm not as excited for this game as I think a lot of people are, Villanova's in a very, very bad spot. They're already they're not deep at all. They're very shallow. Like their roster, they run 6 guys, whatever. They lost their second leading scorer in Justin Moore. Now they're going up against a Kansas team who's playing the best basketball of the season. And it's not good. Like, I think they still have a chance. Jay Wright's your coach, you still have a chance. Like, as much as like this has been like a tour of us loving Jay Wright, saying he's the best college basketball coach there is, losing your second leading scorer and having to play a hot Kansas team is not good. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, 2 teams that I've kind of been high on all year kind of matched up in the Final Four now. Like I wasn't even really that high on Villanova's roster.
Mm-hmm.
It was just Jay Wright and Gillespie. I was like, okay, those two can make a run. And, I regrettably had Remy Martin as one of my like All-American predictions
preseason
way
All-American.
Back when.
Yeah, first
glad he's finally rounded into form at the right time. This Kansas team is totally different when he plays like that. Agbaji has really not done anything that well. I mean, he played okay against Miami, but who didn't for Kansas in that game? I mean, it was a rout.
In that half only, yeah.
So, I mean, but he hasn't really done anything. So if they get him going with Remy, I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I know everybody's loving Duke right now. The Coach K thing, whatever. That's the talked about matchup. But the Villanova-Kansas game, that one's intriguing to me. I think if Kansas wins, I think they're probably my favorite to win it all. I don't know if Villanova can do it just because, you lose Justin Moore. That's going to hurt. But I don't know. This Kansas team has more depth now all of a sudden than I think people expected. Even Lightfoot's giving him production. Yeah. I mean, he's not a lot, but he and McCormick are both, they've shored up that 5 spot well enough. And Jalen Wilson, who's been that kind of X factor all year, he's been pretty up and down. He's kind of picked it up recently too. So that they finally are the team that I thought they were at the beginning of the year.
Okay. I do want to say this because I do think Kansas is hot, and I think they are probably Duke is right there. I think they may be playing the best basketball out of anybody. Let's not act like their road here wasn't a cakewalk, though. You play Texas Southern, a undermanned Creighton team who didn't have their entire starting 5 in their preseason starting 5. They didn't have it in that game, and then they play a Providence team who everybody's calling frauds.
I don't know though. Providence ended up not being, I think, the fraud that we said they were times, being lucky. They handled Providence like pretty well.
Say Providence, and look, Torres told me this on the other podcast, but I'm citing him before I say this. If Providence didn't play their absolute worst in that game, they probably beat Kansas. But only scoring 17 points and a half against Kansas, you're not going to win that game. And they still kept it close to the end. They came back in the second half. And I don't know. I think Kansas played well enough in that Miami second half to have this. They're 4.5 point favorites. I think they played well enough to have that, especially with the injury to Justin Moore, obviously. But I'm not going to act like it was some crazy, awesome run that they impressed the hell out of me with. Because, look, say Iowa got out of that game against Richmond, and they were playing like they were before the season. Say even Auburn was able to beat Miami, or even Miami just somehow they didn't absolutely choke in the second half and all their players fouled out. Like, they're not here. Kansas got a pretty lucky draw, in my opinion.
To be fair, both Villanova and Kansas have. I mean, Villanova got to play Michigan. And I know that we talked about how they had a top 5 roster, but they got to play Michigan instead of Tennessee, which I think everybody, including you and I, had Tennessee advancing.
Yeah.
And I think that really sealed it for them. And then they didn't have to play Arizona either, which I think, again, Villanova was kind of slept on in that region because Tennessee was the team that was really hot coming out of the SEC tournament. And everybody thought that Arizona was arguably the most complete team in the country.
Yeah.
And, they didn't have to play either one of those teams, which I think benefited them greatly. Now you look at the other side of it. I mean, again, Duke, I think, has had a pretty tough road. Not easy, but I mean, it's not been bad either.
I mean, no, look, if you beat Texas Tech and Arkansas, you deserve to be in the Final Four. Yeah. I think those are 2 great teams. Yes.
Same. And then same for North Carolina. Obviously, North Carolina gets a break, getting to play St. Peter's. Again, I know, sorry to Purdue fans, totally jinxed you guys there. The talent did catch up to St. Peter's. It just wasn't in the Purdue game. It was in the
North Carolina game against the 8 seed. Yeah, the game, the worst seeded team that they played in that tournament run. That's when the talent caught up to them.
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah,
but okay, I do have a question for you because this kind of was circulating on my timeline today, and then I was sending it to a couple people, just discussing it, and it ended up like I was just reading the headline and just seeing what people thought. Didn't actually read the article. It was just some random Purdue alum post, and it was basically talking about Matt Painter. And I mean, it was. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It was basically discussing how he has, started to underachieve, hasn't really ended the years the way he probably should have. It's the quote from is, "We have seen him all too often fail to motivate players, teach and focus on defense, maintain leads, and reach attainable goals." And, Matt Painter's not going to get fired. So let me just preface this. But I think part of it is because he's at Purdue and the expectations are a little bit lower, maybe. But his road to the Final Four this year was a dream scenario. I mean, I don't know that I don't have the numbers on this, but if your road to the Final Four was a 15 seed, a 14, a 6, and an 8, I mean, that's got to be the easiest road to the Final Four in like the history of the NCAA tournament. Like, I don't know if there's been an easier road possible, and they don't do it. And I asked the question, I was like, if Matt Painter wasn't at Purdue, would he still have a job? I think it's an interesting question. Like at Kentucky, this is the hypothetical I was talking to you about before we started. Say Matt Painter is coach at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Does he still have a job?
Well, no. Like, no, he doesn't. Because, look, I think the thing saving Cal right now, and obviously every single Kentucky fan, not every single one, but the loud minority, I'd like to call them. They are the ones that are kind of pushing for Cal's job. They're saying, well, he hasn't done anything, and they give the year. He hasn't done anything since 2017. What has Matt Painter ever done? You know, like he has ever since he had the job. Couple Sweet 16.
Got the one Elite 8.
Fine. That's fine. But I mean, you have your best team ever. Your best team ever. And you lose to St. Peter's. I mean, that's your best team that you've ever put together. And that doesn't come along ever, because that is not a great recruiting class. You know, they walked into Jaden Ivey, who was, he was ranked below Christian Lander. They walked into him, you know.
Didn't win Mr. Basketball. Didn't, you know.
Yeah, Travion Williams is a 4-year player. You know, he's a guy who stays.
Stefanovic. 4-year player.
Walk into a 7-4 guy, a 7-4 international guy. This is your best team ever, you know. And this is what you do. And I think everybody was waiting on it to happen. You start off, everybody's ranking you like number 1 or 2 preseason. If Cal did that with the 2012 team, if Cal did that with the 2010 team, if Cal did that with the 2015 team, he's done. But he didn't.
Oh, I mean, I don't disagree. I was getting some backlash from people that I was, you know, that I was sharing this with, that, well, it's not all about, you know, winning the championship. And I was like, you know, that's fair. I don't think it, like, if Purdue loses to a Kentucky or a Baylor, you know, that whatever, like, I don't think people in the end expected Purdue to beat those teams, but you have to look at the road that they had in front of them. And to not beat those teams, and it's just like every year, I've said it, Matt Painter is not a front runner. He can't do it. Every time he is the favorite to win a game, he finds a way to flame out. And the reason I think that he has his job still is the fact that he has that Cinderella run with that Purdue team and Carson Edwards. And, you know, they beat some teams they probably shouldn't have. Those runs that he's had in the tournament where people didn't think they would go very far, he can point at and say, well, I did this, I overachieved there, which is fair, but he's also underachieved majorly. Like that team with Robbie Hummel and Etuan Moore, Jawan Johnson, I think they were a 1 seed, if I'm not mistaken. You know, they didn't get to the Final Four either. Like they cannot get to the Final Four. And look, I don't think he should be fired. I think Matt Painter is a good coach. But what I said was, Matt Painter is not the guy you call to win the big games. He's the guy you call to build up the program. Similar to what Tom Crean did in a way at Indiana. You know, you call in a Tom Crean to build up the program, failed at Georgia, was kind of successful at Indiana. But again, he had his ceiling, and Indiana realized that and was like, we're not going anywhere. We're not getting any farther with this guy at the helm. Like, it's just not going to happen. We need to bring in a guy. Of course, it was Archie Miller, and they failed miserably. So this is a terrible example. But, you know, they brought in a guy. They're saying, you know, Crean can't do this. We need to bring somebody in to get us over the top. I think that's where Purdue is at. Again, it's Purdue, though. It's not Kentucky. It's not Indiana. It's not, there's these expectations aren't that high. So I don't think he gets fired or anything. Just a hypothetical. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it.
He's not the only coach in America like that. I think there's a ton of coaches that suffer from, as much as you hate this phrase, getting over the hump, and they never have in their career. I think the closest one to do that, the closest one that has gotten there, is Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl is like he's the name, he's the face of this scenario, and he got to the Final Four once with Auburn. You know, he walked into this story. Chuma Okeke gets hurt. They go on a run, kind of rally behind him, and they lose to Virginia. And they beat Kentucky in the process. Like that is the closest anybody's ever got to getting over the hump. I don't know why it happens. Like, look, I know the tournament's so much different. It's so much different than regular season, but it's still like you're a great basketball coach. Like you look at guys like Matt Painter, you look at guys like Rick Barnes. Like you're a great basketball coach. Why can't you just coach your way into winning these games?
At least like one, like, you know, and then I get the response of, well, you know, these longest tenure. What's Izzo done recently? What's Bill Self done recently? What? Izzo's gone to 2 Final Fours since 2015. Bill Self has gone to national championship, lost, and other Final Fours. He's back in the Final Four again. Like, I get it. You don't have to win it every year. But to not capitalize on opportunities of the easy roads and, you know, going on a run and just getting to the Final Four, I think that, again, the narrative would be so much different around Purdue if they lose to Kentucky. Like, that's just, okay, whatever. Everybody at Kentucky, it was a good season. We were number one at one point. But now you look at it, okay, we were number one at one point. Everybody had us running through the Big Ten, winning the Big Ten tournament, you know, walking our way to the Final Four. They end up losing to Indiana, which they haven't done in a while. They don't win the Big Ten regular season. They don't win the Big Ten tournament, and they lose to St. Peter's. Like, that's about as bad as it gets. And I'm not even a Purdue fan, but I think it's know. One of the most. Their team is one of the most undertalked. Yes, like, it's one of the year. He always finds a way. I don't know how. Again, you just said it. You just set up the narrative. Yeah. Purdue's not going to be good next year. He will overachieve somehow, and that will win over some people. I just think it's an interesting talking point that probably won't get discussed, but it's interesting because they were, again, one of the premier programs to start the season.
Yeah, and college basketball is different from professional sports because in professional sports, the word mediocrity is a sin. It's something that you want to stay away from. And I know because both my teams in professional sports, they suffer from mediocrity. Colts since Andrew Luck and Pacers forever. And it's a sin in professional sports. But the way you do that is you tank, you get a better draft pick, and you boost your capital. There's no draft in college basketball. Like there's not a problem with being in mediocrity, and that's why people don't lose their jobs. That's just why. Especially unless you're Kentucky, unless you're Duke, unless you're like there's a heavy expectation. But for the programs like Purdue, for the programs like Tennessee, what is their history? What is their rich history? To make,
you know, like I get it. Indiana's at the point where they just want to make the tournament again. We're kind of moving the goalpost back to kind of build it back up.
Indiana's
but at
some point,
Indiana, the expectation is going to be, we need to get to a Sweet 16 and, you know, advance farther than that. Right now, that's not the case. Purdue's, I think, is, you know, let's just get into the tournament, you know, give ourselves a chance. If we lose, whatever. I mean, you lose to North Texas as a 4 seed, you know, you don't hear anything. It's like, everybody's going to come back. Well, now you lose to St. Peter's. Like, again, it's very interesting that it's not talked about. And again, it's because his job is safe. He won't get fired, but I find it very interesting.
I mean, but it's like that. Like programs like Purdue, there's a lot of them in the Big, no offense, but there's a lot of them in the Big Ten that just don't have that historic history, you know. Iowa, one that comes to mind. They don't have this like big time, whatever, like, oh, we're resting on our laurels. No, like they can stay in mediocrity in the AD, and that's what all that matters. It's the AD. Is the AD happy? Like they can stay in that mediocrity. In a Purdue, they can kind of stay
most
there.
of the time.
In
It happens
they can
too.
Stay there.
Like these schools that do that, and you bring up, I was more of a football school as long as their football team is good. And Frank kind of came onto the scene with Luka Garza, and it kind of changed. Iowa kind of struggled a little bit, and the basketball kind of took over for a couple of years. But now I don't know where that's going to go. Iowa football is kind of still down, so
yeah,
we'll see how Iowa rebounds after losing Keegan Murray. But I don't know. It's very interesting. But just to be clear, Matt Painter would get fired if he was the Kentucky coach, in your opinion?
Same
scenario.
Same scenario.
Same context.
Yeah. It's Kentucky. What do you want me to say? It's Kentucky.
I expected that.
People are calling right now.
Yeah.
For John Calipari's job.
Yes.
And he is maybe there's an argument that he is top 2, maybe most successful coach since he's taken over the job. And people are calling for his job. So, yeah, Kentucky fans, they need a little bit more, look, context matters. Kentucky hasn't won a tournament game in over 1,000 days. I saw that tweet earlier. It's been 1,000 days since our last tournament win. And, Kentucky fans are not happy about that. I can tell you that much.
It's probably it's not the worst the program has been. Like, there were some bad years, like before Cal, obviously. And
are you saying like this? Are you asking if this 3? Well, no,
it's got to be the lowest of the low.
2-year stretch because COVID.
Yeah, COVID,
that team was a top 5 team. Like they were ranked number 5 in the nation when the season ended.
Yeah.
Last year,
it just really takes the wind out of your sails, though, because the narrative around Kentucky was they put that year behind them last year. They just put it behind them. Cal changed everything. He changed the narrative. He went to the portal. They get the 2 seed, and then they lose, and it takes the wind out of your sails. It's like, well, then you start questioning, well, did he change this? And did he change that? Did it work? Is it really that much different? I think it's fair questions.
100%. But like if there's one guy that I don't make rash decisions. I'm not that type of especially in college basketball. I just don't. I get why people do. I've grown up. Ever since I started watching basketball, Kentucky's been the best of the best. Since 2010, they've been the best of the best. And then they've taken this kind of decline since 2017. Everybody wants to point to that year. Everybody wants to point to the Fox Monk as like the last time they've been elite. And I get it. Obviously it hurts. I want to get back to there. I think there's a lot of people that experienced, what can happen if we just, we're not on top of things. You see what happened at the kind of the tail end of Tubby's career and what happened with Billy Gillispie. And then we finally get Cal, we get back, and they're just worried that we're going to spiral into this again, which is fair. I think
we've talked about it.
Yeah, it's a fair criticism.
Which again, Cal can't get fired. Like he's got the lifetime contract.
It would be.
It has to be for cause, right?
It would have to be for cause, or unless they're willing to give up like $100 million. Like that's not the real number.
Is St. Peter's a cause? Is that like? Is there like there could be like a stipulation in the contract, like losing to a?
If you lose to St. Peter's Peacocks, yeah,
or like a 15 or a 14 or like they should honestly put that like if you lose to a 15 seed or lower, like okay, then we've got some questions and we
got employment at will. It can go into effect there, yeah.
But I think it's a fair question. We've talked about it. Who takes over this job? And I think it's really important because, as you've seen, once you lose a guy like Cal, you lose a guy like Bobby Knight, whatever. North Carolina, phenomenal job. Home run with Hubert Davis, replacing Roy Williams. There are a lot of questions on whether
you want to go farther back. Home run with Roy Williams, poaching him from Kansas. Yeah.
I mean, they've done it twice now. Duke, the expectations are at an all-time high, especially now that they're in the Final Four. A lot of people are picking them to win it. John Shire's got like the number one recruiting class coming in. If they flop, I mean, that's bad. And, the program, obviously it's Duke, but we've never seen Duke without Coach K for the last 40 or whatever years. So who knows what they look like in 10 years if John Shire can't figure it out and they start losing a lot of games. So the Kentucky hire, again, is very important whenever that time does come. And I get why you don't want that to be happening in the near future. Like, I mean, Cal's still getting good recruits, good recruiting classes. Like, let's not rush into the biggest turning point in our program for like the last 20 years.
He's shown the potential that he can have the best team, playing the best in the nation. Like, it, as much as like you hate this and you think it's an excuse, it's not an excuse. There was a point this year where they were playing like the best team in the nation. Obviously something went wrong. You can blame it on Cal. I don't know who you blame it on, but there was a point. He put together at one point this season the best team in the nation. And obviously something went wrong. Cal's got to figure that out. There's a lot of speculation about in the message boards about what caused that, everything. I hate getting in the message. It's the most toxic.
What is it?
I'm not saying it.
Come on,
I'll tell you after. This is not, I'm not pushing a narrative that could be false. On
podcasts. Come on, you can't do this.
I'll tell you
for the viewers, say it right, because you've got some IU fans in here. We love our message board stuff. So just give us one of these so-called rumored reasons.
I don't even believe it though. Like, I don't
just say it. Just say it. I'd say you don't believe it. It's fine.
I think it's false.
Sam thinks this is false. Go.
I think this is false. There is rumors of a player causing locker room tension when he came back from injury. Is that good?
Oh. Wow.
I think it's a complete lie. I don't think it's true.
I wouldn't believe it. Talking about Ty, obviously.
No.
Oh, severe.
I'm not expanding.
So, okay. Severe.
Can we please get off of that? Because I don't want to push that like it's truth.
Absolutely not. I don't think it is either. I would believe that.
I think it's real, but
we're a very tight-knit group. I wouldn't believe that there's
I really don't think that's true. I think it's a lot on the coaching and not implementing them back into the roster in the correct way. Anyways,
that's interesting. I love hearing that stuff, though. Just the
conspiracy theories. You get giddy about that about everything. About it, if it's Colts, if it's IU.
Conspiracy theories are my favorite, man.
You get so giddy about it, and it's not really something that you can share to the public. But I don't know any details. I doubt it's even true at all. So I as much as I made a disclaimer, I still don't want to.
Can I tell you why I think it is? What I think the problem is?
Sure.
It's the Bruiser Flint curse.
Could be. Haven't won a tournament game since he got hired.
I mean, I'm not going to act like that's a coincidence, but I think it might be. I think it's very interesting. And again, the portal has become very prevalent. What is Kentucky's like biggest needs? Like, again, like you talk about a guy that's rumored to cause locker room issues. Is he coming back?
Yeah. No, I think he's back. Like, let's turn this into an offseason. But that was a good transition because I wanted to get to that anyways. There's 5 guys I think that Kentucky is awaiting the decision on. In my opinion, 3 of them come back. Which 3, I don't know. But there's 5 guys. I think there's a couple already that I would put, good money on that they're back. And the couple that I think good money, they're back. Jacob Toppin, Damian Collins already said he was coming back, and Lance Ware. That is the people that I think you can kind of pencil in. Either Lance Ware, one of the two, and Lance Ware or Bryce Hopkins. I don't know which one. But Lance Ware, I feel like, wants to come back more.
Do you want him back? That's where this conversation gets interesting with the portal is, do you want Toppin back, which I think you do.
I definitely want Jacob Toppin
Do you
back.
want Lance Ware back? Do you want Bryce Hopkins back, taking up a scholarship?
I think Lance Ware, Cal usually never fills his scholarships anyways. So I think Lance Ware on the bench, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think he's shown that he's a good locker room guy. Everybody loves Lance Ware. Everybody in the locker room loves Lance Ware. He's the enforcer. He's awesome. But those are I can confidently say Damian Collins, Jacob Toppin, probably Lance Ware. And it's one of Lance Ware or Hopkins. I don't know. I'd go Ware. I'd lean Ware. And then you're waiting on these decisions. Oscar, Ty, Shaden Sharp, Xavier Wheeler, Keon Brooks. I think 3 of those 5 come back. 3 of those 5. And it could vary which 3. If I had to put money on it, see, I think Keon's gone more than
I think he transfers.
I think Keon's gone more than a lot of people think. I feel like I'm the only one that still has a little confidence in Shaden Sharp coming back. I'd still probably, I would put it at like 55-45 comes back, doesn't.
Wow. 55?
Yeah. I think he does. That's my opinion.
I mean, that's fair. I think Keon, though, is gone.
Keon's gone. I think Keon's gone. I think Xavier's back. I would bet Xavier. I would bet Shaden. And then maybe it's 2 of the 5 because I don't know about Oscar. When the offseason started, Oscar's back 100% in my mind. But then it's kind of been prolonged. Who knows what's going to happen? I think there's still some NIL stuff that they're trying to sort out that he can kind of maximize that. If they sort it out, Oscar's maybe the richest person in college basketball next year. Like he is. And I think that's instrumental in him coming back to college 100%, especially when you're probably working off a 2nd-round pick salary, not guaranteed.
Not guaranteed. It's weird, though, with him, though. The narrative was this is a 2-year thing at the beginning, like you said.
Yeah.
And then that NIL thing came out like 2 months ago that he's got this deal waiting for him if he comes back. And it was like, he's coming back. Like, there's no questions. And now, like, the narrative is completely flipped.
That's what happens, though.
It's trending like in the wrong. It's he and Shaden are both kind of trending in the wrong direction.
Definitely.
As far as coming back, which I think is interesting.
I think I think I'm the only one that's still holding out hope for Shaden Sharp. I think I don't know. This feels weirder than the rest. I still kind of get Hamidou Diallo vibes. I still think he wants to contribute. Maybe I have a false read on, what his priorities are. I don't know. I think he's going to be a rich man in college basketball as well. Like, I think he already has the Porsche deal and he didn't even play a minute. So like, I think there's something there, maybe getting the college experience, but that could just be me being a college basketball nerd, thinking everybody kind of shares that same sentiment. Maybe he goes, but I'm definitely confident on Xavier. I am still confident on Oscar, even though it's kind of trending in the wrong.
So you're confident in Xavier?
Yeah.
I think it's not alarming, but I think it's telling in a way, though, that they are like Xavier Pinson. They're on him immediately. Mm-hmm. That kind of points to the direction of they don't know if Xavier's coming back.
I think it more points in the direction of we want multiple point guards on this team,
which I think is fair. But isn't that what Casey Wallace? Well, I know Casey Wallace is kind of the combo.
He'll play the 2. Like, he'll play the 2 in most lineups, I think.
Here's my thing. If you have Xavier and you have Casey Wallace, you have CJ Frederick. Why are you going after Xavier Pinson? I mean, 3 is enough. Like CJ Frederick is a shooter, quote unquote, but he played point guard for Iowa. Like
he did
handle the ball. And I think that Cal would be comfortable having him as the backup point guard off the bench. So then where does Xavier Pinson fit in? Like, I just think 4 is too much.
I don't know if Cal thinks there's enough guys on earth that can handle the ball for it. I think he loves the idea of positionless basketball. He loves the idea of it. I think he got a lot of hate for going so many, like playing 3 bigs at one time, and he did that a lot. And so if he has a guard like he did last year, he played 3 guards in his starting lineup, and then he had Mintz off the bench, and he would add Frederick. So there you go. Those are that's 4 guys right there that can handle the ball, and plus Kellen Grady, who played point guard at Davidson. So I don't think there's enough guys on earth that can handle the ball. And I think there's a little bit of that with Xavier Pinson. I'm not as high on Xavier Pinson. I think he's a dynamic player. I think he's like very talented. I get the gripes with him in particular, with his shooting splits, with his percentages not being very good. I get
it's very severe. Like
there's a bunch of Kentucky fans that aren't as big a fan as a lot of people are, and I'm kind of indifferent on it. We haven't even seen close to the last point guard put in this portal, so I'm not going to freak out. One name. So all right. So let's say, for my sake, would you want me to do this lineup with Sharp or no Sharp?
Do no Sharp.
I'll do no Sharp.
Even though you're 55% on he's coming back. I don't know.
That's dynamic. I've dropped to 40. I've dropped to 40 and back to 50. It's very dynamic. Yeah. So by the time this is published, it may drop again. But I got Xavier. I got Kaysen. And here's Xavier and Kaysen, I think, are running the backcourt, our starting backcourt. Now, here's where it gets weird. Because a name that's already entered the portal that Kentucky's fallen in love with, Terrence Shannon. I think by far
was going to bring him up.
He's the best player in this portal by far and away, in my opinion. Maybe the best perimeter defender in college basketball. And I think adding him to any lineup, it couldn't hurt at all. And especially Casey Wallace, the best freshman defender in the country coming in. Terrence Shannon. If you want to, Kentucky's defense sucked to close out the year. It sucked. Like their stats were bad. And if you want to fix that, Xavier Kaysen, Terrence Shannon on the perimeter, it's going to be hard to get by them. And then I think maybe try and go for a stretch 4 in the portal. Livingston, maybe. I don't know what his stats are going to be. Maybe Toppin, and then Oscar finished out at the 5. And then obviously you got shooters coming off the bench. Frederick. Dude, I told you before we started recording. Sean Mcneil is a guy who entered the portal, and IU's already looking at him. He's had a list of people call his phone. I'm shocked that Kentucky's not on that list yet. Kentucky is usually involved in a lot of these guys, whether it's them putting Kentucky's name in it. I think that there's going to be some of that with Andre Curbelo, spoiler warning. I don't think Kentucky's very interested in a guy like Andre Curbelo. And look, I think a guy like Sean Mcneil, he would be very good for this team. He from Union, Kentucky, shooter for West Virginia. He was extremely crucial portion of this team that was good not even a year ago, I guess. And I like him. I would like to add him to this roster. I would be shocked if Kentucky doesn't at least involve themselves in this kid's recruitment. So that's kind of where I'm standing. Maybe the kid from Utah Valley, maybe off the bench, something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of
he might enter the draft, which I think is kind of interesting.
I saw that, and he's kind of a stretch big, which is pretty cool. But that's kind of my roster. And this could change so much. Sharp comes back. Maybe we don't get Shannon. so maybe I don't even know if that's, binary. I don't think Sharp leaving means Shannon's not going to come, because I think there's a possibility in where you find a way to bring Shannon in because he's that good of a player. That's kind of where I'm at.
That would be interesting. I think if they roll out that lineup that you said, they might be a bottom 25 worst offensive team in the country. Like, I know,
but that's look, you can put Kaysen off the bench, maybe put Xavier on the bench, bring CJ Frederick in just to kind of lighten that load and make it offensive.
Even then,
is
CJ Frederick the only? Obviously, if Shaden comes back, it changes. But is CJ Frederick the only offensively talented player they have?
From that standpoint, Kaysen is a good two-way player. I think his defense just makes the headlines because his defense is that good.
Who's better offensively, Ty or Kaysen Wallace?
It's obviously it's Ty. Ty at his best. What we thought Ty was coming out of high school. Obviously, there's a lot
translate?
of, I don't know. He was good for the beginning portion. He was good against Tennessee. Then he had his injury, and he was never the same.
I think that as weird as it sounds, Oscar leaving, I don't. That's not necessarily a good thing, but you guys can't. I don't know. I think shooting really affected Kentucky, and by the end of it, their offense was just so bad. Like their spacing was bad. Oscar didn't even have a lot of room to operate. Xavier didn't have any driving lanes. I can't see Cal going down that road unless there's no other option. And then he's to the point where we have to be like, I hate this for you because you're going to be playing like Virginia style of basketball, like 50s, 60s.
It's gross.
It's going to be a defensive battle every game. It's going to be like Texas Tech, honestly.
That's what I'm thinking.
That Terrence Shannon is coming. Like that's the style, and it's not a bad thing. It wins games, and not two of the top, but Houston and Kansas, Villanova, all in the top 4, top 5 of the defensive metrics. Like those teams dominated defensively. That's why they had success. But man, that's just not fun to watch. If you could just keep Shaden Sharp in that mix, that would.
If Shaden Sharp's on this team, the ceiling of this team is unreal. Like if Shaden Sharp comes back, it's unreal what this team can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know where his head's at. That's why I'm making this prediction based off all the facts in front of me. I kind of have to insert myself. Like if I'm a kid who is going to be maybe a top 10 pick, I see mocks all the time and it's very fluid. It's not like he's a surefire top 10, top 7 pick. Like I see
who's that?
Sharp. Like he is
top
he
10,
is in a lot of them, but there's some that don't see it. I don't know where he goes when he's the only thing that NBA teams can look at is his combine. He hasn't played basketball in a long time.
I think an interesting comparison for him is going to be like Michael Porter Jr., except Shaden doesn't have the injury.
Yeah.
And you still saw Michael Porter got drafted, 13th, I think?
He was the end of the lottery.
I want to say it was 13.
14. Yeah.
13 or 14, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think Shaden, you see a lot of these guys that are at the top of the draft, Jabari, Chet, Paulo. After that, it is like, it's a bleep show to put it nicely. I mean, there's some guys that are good.
I like when you pick and choose when to cuss and when not to cuss.
Trying to be better. Like, Keegan Murray's a guy that's going to be in the top 7, 8. A lot of people don't like his ceiling.
Would you pick
Sharp's
Keegan
got the
Murray?
higher ceiling.
Would you pick Keegan Murray or Shaden Sharp right now? Would you pick Jaden Ivey or Shaden Sharp right now? Would you pick Johnny Davis or Shaden Sharp right now? That's not
Keegan Murray and Johnny Davis. I Jaden Ivey has a higher ceiling than both of those guys, I think.
Yeah.
I think his floor might be a little could be lower. Like he could obviously not pan out.
Yeah.
But Shaedon Sharpe's ceiling is higher than all of those players. Like,
Yeah.
that's no question. He has the 4th highest ceiling of any player in the draft, I would say.
Like, I would put his ceiling. I would put his ceiling above Paulo's.
Maybe even, yeah. So 3rd. So
yeah,
he's going to go top 10.
I'd imagine he goes top 10. But there's so many.
From his
concerns.
perspective, if he looks at it, it's better for him if he gets drafted a little. Obviously, we've talked about the money discrepancy between top 4 and then later. It's better for him if he gets drafted a little bit later.
Lottery kind of changes that, though.
Yeah, it fluctuates. Again, it's going to be the teams he talks to. If there's a team in the lottery that's, just had injuries and they're there, but they're a good team, like the Warriors, for instance, they get Kuminga and Moody. That's a very good place to go to versus somebody else. But I don't know. It's a lot of money to pass up. You're risking like an injury, but does he still get drafted in the top 5 next year? If he gets hurt, season ending, probably. I would say somebody probably takes a flyer on him anyway. So
I mean, there's a chance he's battling with one guy next year if he comes back, in my opinion, for the number 1 pick. I think he's back. He's battling with Victor Wembanyama, however you say it, from France, I believe. That's going to be 1 and 2 if he comes back. So, in my opinion, bet on yourself, whatever. I get the injury. It's a problem, sure. But I don't know as an NBA team if I would, all you have is his high school tape. And he was a very fast riser too. So you really only have a summer of tape. Like you only have like a few games of high school tape that you can look at and say, okay, this is the guy we're drafting, because before he was unranked just a year prior. I'm not hating on the kid. I think he's he may be the best player that comes out of this draft, but I'm just saying there's a lot of question marks.
Either way, sorry for Kentucky fans. This is going to be a long process. He's testing the waters, I assume, no matter what.
Cal is going to tell him to test the waters. Yeah.
He doesn't have to decide until June. So it's going to be a long 2 months. And, by then you'll probably know if they're getting guys in the portal, Terrence Shannon, other guys coming in. You're probably going to know, but the wait and see game is going to be a little stressful for you guys.
Yeah, it's the life of being a Kentucky fan. Sucks that the offseason started early, because
usually, as I say, you guys have already been kind of sitting here for the past week and a half. Like it's already started. Usually, you got something more positive to,
and nothing has happened besides Dante Allen transferring and Damian Collins coming back.
Yeah,
don't seem like very move the needle things to happen. But let's get into, before this can kind of be our last say. I don't know how long we've been running, but Indiana offseason, you can kind of take the reins on this one a little bit. A lot of guys have entered the portal. Opposite of Kentucky, a lot of things have happened. Not a lot of guys have, came to IU, but like a lot of guys have left. And obviously it opens up a 1 scholarship, 2 scholarships.
1 right now, because there were 3 over.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can kind of talk about that, what it means, what do you think can happen?
Yeah. So again, people that have left: Michael Durr, Christian Lander, Rob Finnessy. I'm missing one now. It's so hard to keep track of all this. You've got other guys, Trace and Race, big question marks on what they're going to do. I think those were all kind of expected. Oh, Parker Stewart's the other one. I think everybody kind of expected that roster turnover. The big thing I think from this offseason that has kind of happened is the Fife situation, how he was relieved of his duties, not to say fired, not to say mutual though either. It was not mutual. I think that ship has sailed long before this final decision. We've kind of talked about that. Listening to Jeff Rabjohn's kind of give the context of the situation, wasn't really a Woodson hire. Dolson hired him and said, you're going to have this guy on your staff. Similar to Thad Matta. I think Thad Matta is another guy that we could see on the way out as far as him being on the staff going forward. He also was not, a Woodson hire as well. So, I think that whole narrative is weird as far as that. But I also found out that Randy Whitman, former NBA coach, has kind of been a consultant this entire time, is at practices all year, which is
I saw him at the Crossroads Classic. He was on the court.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but again, everybody was worried that Whitman was going to get hired as the third assistant, but they went with I think he's the director of recruiting, Brian Walsh. Great hire. Glad they did. I'm glad they went that way. If Woodson really wants Whitman involved, fire Thad Matta and have him be in that role. Or just keep him as a consultant, because that's apparently what he's been good at anyway.
I mean, it's messy to hire a former head coach to be your assistant. Like,
I get that
for a college team, it gets weird. Like a former NBA head coach, he coached the Wizards, correct?
Yes.
So that gets a little bit sticky. Yeah.
I don't think he would want to be the head coach at some point.
Sure. But with what we have heard from Fife, Mr. Conspiracy Theory, there could be a lot of alpha situation. There could be some alpha situation.
Again, Whitman is also from IU, so I think that, at this point, I know he's not young though. He's not he doesn't have head coaching aspirations, I don't think, but I get what you're saying. But, again, learning through all this, the assistants, Kenya Hunter was also basically retained, which I was glad, but that wasn't really Woodson's choice. Woodson's really only hire was Yzir Rosemond, which, found out he's from the Kenny Payne coaching tree a little bit, which gives me, some confidence in the recruiting trail. You kind of tell, we've talked about it, getting Tamar, getting these guys from the South that Indiana's usually not involved with is very interesting. And obviously, Yzir's had a big impact on that. But, going forward, they still have some major holes. Miller Kopp apparently is probably going to come back. I think that was always the plan when he came here. That's going to really bother some IU fans. It doesn't make me particularly happy, but, I think him being used.
Well, he's primal, Mr. TikTok.
He's NIL evaluations going through the roof with the TikTok impressions.
Hey, look, as much as I can make fun of him, he's bringing attention to the Indiana program, which is, no offense. That's a good thing. Publicity at all is good. And, he's talking to Dave Portnoy, whatever. He could be a rock star in college basketball. He's really got to step up his play, though. He's really got to step up his play.
Yeah, I think that going forward, maybe they'll use him differently. At least that's my hope. I thought they misused him so badly this year, and it was just very frustrating. Xavier Johnson, I think, is another guy. He hasn't entered the portal yet. Kind of expecting him to come back as well, just being on that 2-year plan. I don't think he would want to transfer again. That just seems like a lot of change for him in 2 years. And I think he's probably happy with where he was at. And the only way I could see him leaving is if Woodson said, you're not starting next year. And Hochefino is going to start over you, which I don't think is going to happen. So those two guys coming back, they still have a scholarship open. I think there's some guys, you mentioned Sean Mcneil. I think they're interested in him. Clearly they need a shooter. I don't know who it's going to be, but good Lord, please just give us somebody. And I think that filling that scholarship that's open now with the shooter, Trace and Race, I think probably at least one of them leaves. Again, I don't know. You talk about Shaden, your confidence on him staying, leaving. With Trace, I am legitimately 50-50. I don't know, because, there's one mock I see him in the first round, and then there's another mock that I see him 46th. I think he's improved his draft stock, but he hasn't secured that first round pick yet. So it makes me think, okay, if he hears from teams that he is not going to be a first round pick, I don't know what he's going to do. And I think it's also interesting. He hasn't even said he's going to test the waters yet, which not a lot of those announcements have happened either.
No,
so
I've been shocked at how little I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard just some Isaiah Brockington, leaving.
Yeah, he just did.
Keegan
like Murray
that.
just announced a couple minutes ago. He's obviously staying, but that is interesting that he hasn't done that yet. So that's something to keep an eye on. Race, on the other hand, I don't think he's pursuing an NBA career. So I think it's either he's at IU or he's going to just be done playing basketball unless he goes overseas. Again, I don't know. I don't think both of them come back. I really do believe that if, say, Race leaves first, Woodson's going to be, pushing, say, hey, Trace, it's just going to be you down there this year with Geronimo at the 4. Like, I think that maybe he will push harder for him to come back. But either way, clearly there's going to be more than just this one open scholarship. They're pursuing Malik Reneau. He decommitted from Florida, teammates of Jalen Hood-Schifino. I tweeted something today about Indiana and Miami heavily pursuing him. I think he's visiting up here in April, so that'll be something to be on the lookout for. But again, there's a lot of the portal, as fast as it's moving on people entering, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be fast on who is going to be on your team.
That'll be. Do you remember we were making episodes last year in June? Like, I remember it because it was the heat of the summer, and I had no idea what Kentucky's roster was going to look like. Like, so we are. It's frustrating. For a great offseason.
The champion, the Final Four is still going. It sucks when you lose early, and it's like I'm in full offseason mode already.
There was a name that just entered the portal. I don't know if you saw it yet. Who is, if I had to pick, is Kentucky.
Really?
Adam Miller just entered the portal.
Oh.
So maybe
LSU's entire roster is in the portal at this point.
Yes, Brandon Murray, Adam Miller, they're all in there. I think. Look, he was between and this is lazy because he was between Kentucky and he was between LSU. I don't think he's going back to Illinois, which maybe the roster is depleted, so he would get all the shots he wanted.
I saw they're the favorite for Sky Clark, by the way.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. But. Adam Miller.
How many guards can Kentucky get, though? Jesus. And he's not really a great shooter either. So, what are we doing here?
I don't know. I just know we were so interested in him last offseason that it would be
Kentucky should not do that. I'm sorry. Coming off,
you don't like Adam Miller? You don't like Adam Miller?
Coming off an injury, hasn't played.
That's true. That's true.
You guys shouldn't have to settle. No offense to Adam Miller. Not saying he's not a good player, but I don't know. Tanner Holden's another one.
I just completely derailed, but I just thought that was big enough news, Adam Miller, because of you remember how much time we spent on him last offseason? How many we talked to Pilgrim about him and everybody.
Well, it was the whole Illinois thing, the mass exodus of coaches, and then it was going to be the mass exodus. I mean, it came out like Curbelo basically, I guess, expected at one point when he was in the portal last year to come to Kentucky. That was a thing.
Yes.
With Kofi,
he never entered
Adam Miller.
Never entered the portal, but
yes,
he was there was definitely smoke, and usually when there's smoke, there is some fire.
Yeah,
Kofi was. I don't like saying he was on his way.
Burning.
That thing was in flames, and if now that we can kind of just say it openly, if Will Wade didn't open up the bag, you'd think for Adam Miller. That team may look a lot different than it did. Not saying it would be better. Also not saying it'd be worse.
Is Efton Reed in the portal?
Yeah.
I mean, he is in the portal.
I thought I saw that. I believe.
I mean, I'm not surprised by that. I mean, another just waste of $100,000 plus for Will Wade, stealing him from Pitt. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. He went all out, but the portal is going to be interesting. There's a lot of guys that are going to enter in the next couple of weeks. It's very unfortunate that again, you literally have no idea. You have no idea what's going to happen. So there's so much volatility, and you just have to wait and see. So basically, we have to wait till July, which is a while from now, to figure out what our teams are going to look like.
Fine by me, because we can stretch the shit out of this. We can stretch the shit.
The rumors are going to be flying,
and you guys have nothing to do but listen to us. So, no. Brandon, here's a bit of scoop. This is Zagoria posted this like 4 days ago. So Georgetown hired Kevin Nickelberry, who was LSU's interim coach, as their assistant. And that made Brandon Murray, Efton Reed, and Alex Fudge, like, that made Georgetown the favorite for all of them, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Patrick Ewing needs that, man. He
needs on his last
limb, so
yeah.
That is interesting. I don't know. Like, that's another thing with back to Malik Renault, the assistant from Florida, like, is not on the staff anymore. Obviously, the article kind of talked about wherever he goes, he formed a great relationship with Malik and his dad. So wherever he gets hired, just watch out for that school as well. So, there's so many moving parts. It's going to be fun to discuss for the next couple of months.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And now, look, recruits are starting to. We talk about transfer portal. Recruits are starting to decommit. Like, recruits, It's so funny. The national letter of intent means nothing anymore.
No.
Like, usually when you sign, you're done officially going to the school. But now you can just ask for it. You can just request a way to get out of it, and you will get it 100%. Like, that's what Sky Clark did. That's what people are going to start doing, especially with these coach firings. I'm very excited. This is going, as much as it's kind of the integrity of college basketball is, it seems like it's kind of losing its weight a little bit. Like, that was a fun ass year. Like, as much as Kentucky sucks, as much as at the end, and like IU lost, like, that was a fun ass year. And there was guys who you just wouldn't have seen in the position that they were in. Like, Texas Tech was an awesome story. Kevin O'Banner, obviously Adonis Arms, like, that was an awesome story. Arkansas was cool to watch. People took advantage of this transfer portal. People took advantage of the extra year from COVID. And I texted you and Bryson. We're talking about what the Big Ten can look like next year, because that's just conversations we just have for some reason, like on 3:00 on a Sunday afternoon or whatever. Oh, what do you think the Big Ten's going to look? No, but I told you, I think my brain is going to explode because of the COVID year. And I don't know who has that eligibility. I don't know who doesn't. So it is complete chaos, and it'll be so much fun because we're learning as you learn, and I'm excited to get into this offseason.
Yep. I am. I don't know. I've been in it since the beginning. I will say the tournament games have been great. I've been also really busy and haven't watched probably as much of the tournament as I would have liked, but my interest has been down because I'm so interested in the next move, who's leaving, who's staying. I've been more focused on that than even the tournament games. Like we've got a Final Four coming up, and the national championship, and my interests are elsewhere.
I mean, what percentage of the show has been talking about the Final Four? Obviously, we're going to have an entire episode dedicated to it, but what percentage? What gets? I'm gonna let everybody in on a little secret. I usually don't pull back the curtains, but the viewers of this podcast, I'm watching you. I see the numbers. I mean, when it hits off season, I'm talking like a 30% increase, like, just in the off season.
That's what everybody likes.
It's crazy. It's wild.
Rumors.
It's wild. Yeah, I guess I have to just say now on recording stuff that's probably not true because you're asking for it, not verified whatsoever. Just message board talk.
Give that message board talk out there. It's fun to discuss.
but I hate it because it's false. And
oh, I mean, you don't technically know if it's true or false. You want to think it's false,
but there's no validity. Like, there's nothing to show that it's true at all. So I
see, like, that's fine. Like with the Dane 5 stuff, everybody was like, it's message board talk. The validity came to fruition when he was relieved of duties, and
we knew kind of the sources. Like there's walked into a source.
Yeah.
And we sometimes walk into sources on stuff we probably shouldn't know. But
no. No. And I remember hearing it, I was like, holy shit. Like, that is wild what I was just told.
That was more than a bleep. Like, that needed the shit part, right?
Yes. I mean, that I will not. When I saw that I was like, what? Like, are you kidding me? Like, really? That's the perception changed. Let's just say that of the story.
We walk backwards into stories sometimes. So yeah, whoever's listening, if you got something, hit us on DM. I guess we're more than likely to share.
We love to talk. We love to talk about it. Yeah.
But okay. Yeah, Connor, is there anything I did cut you off a little bit, but did you get what you wanted to say about IU's offseason? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I'm good.
So thank you for joining me. Everybody, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe, 5 stars, whatever you're listening to, just show us some love. We're gonna hit this offseason hard. This is like March leading in, March from June, or March until June is probably when we're the busiest. That's probably when we have the most stuff to talk about. So yes, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back on Friday to talk about the Final Four, give our predictions, all the storylines you need to know, and love you guys.